So this album came out in 1971, recorded very quickly, December 1970 to January 71. So this was really knocked out quickly. Produced by The Doors and their engineer, Bruce Botnick, which is something a little different. Normally, they always worked with Paul Rothchild, who was known really for his work with Janis Joplin also. Paul Rothchild was not too happy with what he was hearing. He was frustrated getting the Doors, trying to get them to work and get together, and then he was still kind of reeling from the passing of Janis Joplin. So they kind of separated, decided we're going to do it ourselves. This hit number 9 on the Billboard charts, which is nice. 36 weeks on the charts altogether, and 2 singles came from this album: "Lover Madly," which hit number 11, and "Riders on the Storm," which hit number 14. And the album eventually went double platinum in 87. But like I said in the open, this is the first American band to have 8 consecutive gold albums. And gold is 500,000 or more. So that's a pretty decent stat for a group like this. You don't really think that, because they really didn't put out that many studio albums, but there's also some compilations and a live album in there. So when you stack it all together, there was 8 consecutive albums that reached that status. So pretty neat. One of my favorites, The Doors, absolutely, and this album is a gem.
I never really got into the whole mystique of Jim Morrison. I didn't get it. I thought, what's up with this guy? I was more into the band. I was more into Robbie Krieger playing these weird guitar riffs, and I was really enamored with that stuff. And Manzarek having to play the bass notes with his organ, and Densmore playing Latin beats and weird time signatures and stuff. That's how I kind of got into the band, was the music. But Morrison, I was like, is this guy, like, I don't know, is he full of crap, or is he just is it really? I just didn't get the whole mystique of him. I didn't buy into it until much later.
Probably, I would say it's probably equal parts BS and genuine mystique.
Of course, yeah.
And you hit on it too. Is the band The Doors?
Yeah,
it's so easy for Jim Morrison, especially since he passed away, and he's just has this legendary look about him, and everybody sees him on posters. You see Jim Morrison, and then the other guys just look like guys off the street, but those were accomplished musicians. Robbie Krieger. Absolutely. The guy was trained in flamenco playing. So when he brings that type of style to rock music, that's when the electricity happens, when someone takes a different take on it. And John Densmore, Latin influenced, jazz influenced. So he's trying to push his kind of agenda, as it were, into it to get his feelings through. And then you've got Ray Manzarek, who's really kind of bluesy. Yeah, he plays those bass lines with his left hand, and then he's just pounding away at the keyboard. So you have this eclectic mix of 4 guys that come together, and then you've got Jim Morrison, was spending all his time reading poetry, studying the poets, and he's a bona fide poet. I mean, he does, his lyrics are poetry, and you put all that together, and you get something like the first album, which really was like this, came out right in the middle of like the Summer of Love, 67, psychedelia. You got Jefferson Airplane. You have all that stuff going on, and you have the Doors in there. So they're talking about all this weird imagery and really strange instrumentation and songs like The End. And you get, and I could see where people might not want to go down there. They'll listen to Light My Fire, because the hits really kind of almost stand out from the albums. Not that the albums are so weird. But there is a nugget on the first album, which was kind of a tell, is they did a cover of Backdoor Man, which is a blues song.
Yeah.
And that little nugget from there, and all that other psychedelia and all the other stuff they were doing, is the through line to LA Woman, I think, because they started in that genre with the really trippy lyrics and the 8-minute songs. And as they progressed through their discography, because they put out like 6 albums from 67 to 71, so very prolific, but their growth was also significant.
Yeah.
From one album to the next. And by the time we get to LA Woman, which we're going to be talking about, they were a different band.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had come through the psychedelia. Yeah. They had come through it and made it through, and not a lot of bands do. And they had made it into the 70s. And I think that's actually one of the tragedies of the Doors, is that on this album, I feel that they had found it. Like, they had gone through all that stuff, and this album, they were able to meld the poetry, the playing, the blues. It finally came out like we're a blues band. Because that's what this album is. So they went through all that stuff and came through the other side the way they started, which they started with a blues song and they ended as a blues band.